The answer is because tomorrow is not promised, and I woke up this morning. How you doing? It's the best day of my life, man. And I mean best day of my life. I was just we finna get in the shower, but I was just looking over my daughter's, I think it's her third or fourth book. Big shout out to Regina Sunshine, man. My child is 10 years old. No, 9. She'll be 10 in January. But she has had the privilege of working with the Awesome Girl program, and they do a book every year. And it builds the confidence up in these girls. And my child, I know, this is my child right here. But and this is her on the cover. And if you look up Awesome Girl, or you look up Regina Sunshine Robinson, you can find some of these books. But it's some awesome young ladies that participated. And big shout out to Regina Sunshine, because my child got 4 books. She got more books than I got. But I'm thankful for that program. I can't wait to see what they do next, Miss Sunshine. Also, Miss Sunshine helped me get her and Jack Trey got me in radio. They got me in radio years ago, man. I was able to interview some people like some influential people. Shawty Low before he died, Professor Griff, some of the people at the president. Well, I don't know if he was the president of the NAACP, but it was just a bunch of people, man, that I would not have had the opportunity to work with if it wasn't for Jack Trey and Regina Sunshine. So, and also, I'm just thankful for those people, man. These are people who, didn't owe me nothing and gave me an opportunity to do some things. D Hill as well. D Hill, shout out to D Hill. Gave me an opportunity to do AM radio. It was dope. I learned a lot about myself and about other people. But on with that, let's get off of the Shawty. So, if you want to know where we left off at, go back and look at the last episode. Get caught up. These chapters, we're gonna step back. We're gonna step back into time almost. We're gonna go take it back to Eastlake Meadows. We're gonna talk about these people. You're gonna hear some things. If you're from Atlanta, you're gonna hear some things that sound familiar. You're gonna run into people like Mr. A. And if you're a Shawty, you know who Mr. A is. I'm going to touch on my perception. These are not facts. It's just me sitting in the cell, being locked down, being an alto baby, and just like coming up with scenarios. But we go back into the origin of Eastlake Meadows. And this is all make-believe. Some of the stuff is true. It may, come out to be true. But we're going to get into Haseen. And I told you last week, Haseen owns a club called H. Trey. Haseen backwards is Messiah. H. Trey backwards is Earth. Again, everything is coming from the Bible. It's not a Bible. We're not rewriting the Bible. That's not what's going on. We simply, we've listened. We've been exposed to certain things. And we creating, man. That's what we do. I like for you to listen to it. I like some feedback. Give me some feedback. Share, subscribe, hit the notification button, like it, post it, and leave something. Say something in the comments, man, so I can answer some of these questions. And then you'll see that I'm gonna do more than one chapter because these chapters are short. And I think we left off on chapter 13 last week. Chapter 14. So here we go, chapter 14. When he was still being addressed as Haseen, Nick was left in the dirtiest South with red clay sprinkled upon his torso. His grandmother, who was too good for this world, passed away when he was 12. Haseen did not know his parents, and to his knowledge, he didn't have any brothers or sisters. Forced to fend for himself on a battleground that would later be known as Little Vietnam, Nick scraped the game and all of its perks off the curves of Eastlake Meadows. At 17, he set up shop in the unsympathetic land with an understanding that the more money you obtain, the more options you had. That hadn't changed. Petty hustling with many manila envelopes of marijuana and a stable of prostitutes, Nick was thirsting for an opportunity to expand. Cocaine, in its deadliest form, was presented to the hoods of Atlanta in the early 80s. Because he was known, young, and ambitious, he was chosen. In the first days of trial, cocaine, which was still being snorted and sometimes smoked in its powdered form, silently swiped the souls of cable-ready men and women in selected parts of the city. Then it began to spread. Refusing to get high by any means, Nick was often considered to be too serious, even square. And when hot powder was just getting good to customers who started needing it instead of wanting it, he caught up with the slick-talking cat from Detroit. This cat called himself Pimpin' Paul. It was Christmas Eve, 1980-something. Everybody who was anybody could be found posted at the bootleg liquor house down on 2nd Avenue. Surrounded by big-bodied Thunderbirds and recently purchased Cadillacs, the honeycomb hideout looked small from the outside. Doing what he did, Nick sipped on a glass of water that was drawn from the kitchen sink, then poured over crushed ice. The usually dark place was lit up on this particular night in more ways than one. Ear hustling, Nick was hoping to find out who had it for a reasonable rate. He'd heard that hustlers from up north were sweet when it came to imports and exports. Lavishly balling in a corner of the honeycomb was a pinky ring pimp wearing a white Bossalina with a red feather. He wore it tilted hard to the left. Pimpin' Paul is what they call him, a functioning smoker said to Nick as they sat at the bar. He glanced across the shoulder and was almost blinded by Paul's presence. He working with something, Nick asked. He working with something? Nick asked. You know he is, but it don't look like what it's supposed to look like. The boy got some shit that look like white rocks. White rocks? Yeah, man, it's heavy too. Let me tell you, because I know. Nick looked at the man as if he was a question mark at the end of a sentence that had yet to be asked. You got some of these white rocks on you? Reaching into his pocket, the informing man pulled out the purchased product and let him examine it. Nick looked over at the supposed pimp, then at the two mean-looking bodyguards he had with him. One of them was over by the record player, and the other was close to the back door, cursed with the gift to create. Nick went to work. You high now? He asked the smoker. Not yet. You want to get high? Damn right. Which would you rather get high off, the powder or the rock shit? Both. But if I had to choose, then I gotta go with this rock. Nick sucked his teeth the way Demetrius once would. Where's that girl I see you with all the time? The man dropped his head. She left me, man. Why? Well, she said I was going no place fast and that she didn't want anything to do with me. Who have you been with tonight? Oh, Pimpin' Paul providing women and dope. He got ladies in the back room turning tricks and they get high with you. Nick looked back at the question mark. You paid to be with one of his girls? Yeah. Then you let her smoke your dope? Yeah. Let me see that rock again. Nick studied the potent drug and his senses led him to the table where the pushing pimp was waiting on him. When he crossed the imaginary line, Paul's men pushed their hands inside their coats. Four of Nick's men walked up on each of Paul's men. Panic, hugged by calmness, brushed up against the pimp's face. He sipped his drink. Now you gonna broad pimping? Nick thought his voice was too animated. His talk was syrupy and effectively slow. So when he spoke, you felt as if you had been dripped on. Nick held back his desire to laugh in his face. With honest eyes and a clean nose, Nick moved first. For the second time, I'm trying to give you my money. You don't need all these people to give pimping your money. What's your name, blood? Nick? Nick, do you always travel like this? Oh, these are just simple precautions. I apologize, pimping, but I got rules. Paul smiled. So where are you from, Nick? I'm from where I'm at. How about you? I'm from Detroit. How you like it down here? Up until now, it's been pretty slow, if you know what I mean. Tired of the small talk, Nick tossed his product over to him. What did you do to it? I fixed it. How? Nick asked. Judging by your outfit, blood, you can't afford that type of information. So, do you know how to fix this yourself? Nick asked. Pimpin' Paul, baby. Mr. Get Down himself. That's all he needed to know. Nick nodded his head, and those he fed, Pimpin' Paul was snatched up at gunpoint. His men were escorted to the nearest exit. The music kept playing, the drinks kept coming, and in less than 30 seconds, the pimp, his prostitutes, the smoker, Nick, and a couple of other precautions were gone. Chapter 15. On Christmas morning, early in the a.m., Pimpin' Paul was teaching Nick how to fix his cocaine so that it would rock up. During his chef de cuisine-like session, Paul demonstrated how the whip worked, cheat himself, and bring it back. Not sure as to what his kidnappers were going to do to him when he was done, he explained everything Nick needed to know about cooking crack, minus one minor detail. You sure that's it? Nick asked as they stood in the middle of the small kitchen. Yeah, blood, that's it. Only thing you got to do is cut it and sell it. Nick removed a brown paper bag from his coat, which was hanging on the back of an acacia wooden chair. Pimpin', tell me something. If you and I would have done some type of business in the past and I would have asked you to show me what you just showed me, would you have? If the money was right, I believe a man. He cleared his throat. A businessman know that when he has come up on something big, he got to juice it for all he can, because ain't no telling when it might get sweet again. How much would you have charged me to show me what you just showed me? Waiting to hear his price, Nick reached into his bag, prepared to triple his request. Considering all the events that had taken place in the last few hours, Paul tilted his head. I wouldn't have charged you anything. Nick eyed the pimp hard. Paul walked closer to him. From the looks of things, blood, you're about to do big numbers. This city about to get its own frame, this whole frame rearranged. I want in. Keep talking. Nick noticed that Pimpin' Paul had lost his sticky accent. I know you country boys think the cats from up north are sweet. Let me tell you, blood, to a certain extent, that's true. But that's a two-way street. Some of y'all sweet to them city boys, too. Them, Nick repeated. Oh, don't sweat it. But I ain't never been to Detroit. I'm from Florida. And this little recipe that I just put you on to is old news in that bottle. Florida got niggas half your age and twice as relentless, straight up taking over spots. In addition to what I know is that it ain't enough people in the world to smoke all that dope they got coming off that water. The Miami boys on their way. And when they get here, a lot of this shit don't change, blood. I want to be a part of that change. You and me, we can do things. Paul threw Nick the keys to a white Cadillac. Inside the seats of my car right now, I got enough work to employ your entire operation. What's stopping me from just taking everything you got? Nick turned his back to him, then looked over at the dope on the counter. Paul turned. When he picked up a piece of the fixed product, it appeared to be slowly but surely melting away. He looked at the pimp. The pimp folded his arms. Blood, a true magician never reveals his tricks. Over the course of the next couple of months, Paul and Nick helped introduce crack cocaine to the hoods of Atlanta. Using Nick's credibility to make his face known, Paul became an important pawn in the street game. Chapter 16. Still sticking to his pimping, Paul stumbled upon a section of the city that he was sure was going to change tricking forever. On weekends, the team of two could be found together at nightclubs. While Nick sipped on H2O, his partner strolled around with a flock of attention-seeking women who he believed were in need of his proper guidance. Pimpin' often had some of his girls put on expensive shows for upfront fees and expected tips. If your money was right and you wanted to sample some of the offered goods, he was the one you had to talk to. On one particular night, they were celebrating the jail release of one of their workers. Because he had kept his mouth shut about their operation, he was being rewarded. That night, the club was full of players from all over the city. Many of the experienced, more accomplished pimps showed up just to hear Paul talk that talk. And like the last performance of a star-studded show, Paul gave those around him something to listen to. Excited about a vision he had, Pippin spoke. Attention, attention. People, pimps, hustlers, squares, and hoes. Pippin Paul is making a toast. To what? One of his girls asked loudly. I'm toasting to the resurrection of an ancient old trade that is very much necessary. And since I'm legendary, it is I, Pippin Paul, he who shall never fall, he who shall pimp 'em all, who will reintroduce y'all to this space age pimping. Yes, sir. I do declare my Cadillac is my spaceship. On this street outside, he pointed Stewart Avenue, is the next galaxy. And for those of you who like to fly, if you get with me later, you can get beamed up by Scotty. The crowd laughed when he wanted them to, and he held up his glass. Y'all lift your drinks, bottles. Some of you thirsty niggas got jars. Laughter erupted. Two guys in the back lowered their jars. Mark my words, there's going to be some great horror take place on Stewart Avenue. And with every pimping bone I got in my body, Pippin Paul gonna pimp them all. Pimp, nigga, pimp. One of the Jerry Curl West Side players tipped his hat to Paul. Throughout the crowd, accomplished pimps stood to their feet and removed their brims. Nick smiled to himself as he held up his water. When the room was totally silent and all the eyes were on him, he pointed to the other pimps. Pimp or die. Pimp and Die, they called back. The rest of the club joined in, and the night was considered a success. Chapter 17, then we're going to stop. Over the years, Nick noticed every day the new unfamiliar faces were moving in on claimed and unclaimed territory with the mannerisms of heartless pigs. Some of the Miami boys moved like players, taking a little and taking a little more. Then there were the others who pushed competition out of the picture with whatever means they deemed necessary. In Southwest Atlanta, where it was, the home team was not going down without a fight. Gun battles were everyday occurrences, and the city's death toll was on the rise. On the east side of things, Nick was losing customers and workers to the new guys in town. Paul was ready for war, but his partner had figured that the drama that was about to take place could easily be avoided if they just simply made investments in other industries. So you telling me you gonna let these niggas run you out your own city? Paul asked as the two of them sat by Nick's pool, which was a long way away from Little Vietnam. Paul, the game is changing. It's getting more and more cutthroat as we speak. Selling dope is good for a minute, but you have to know when to walk away. Anytime you're breaking any type of law, you have to realize that your time is limited. Man, don't give me that square talk. This me, blood. He looked him directly in the eye. As long as we've been knowing each other, I ain't never led you wrong. We can beat these niggas at their own game. Right now, I got police in 3 different zones on payroll. Do you know what that means, blood? He didn't give him a chance to respond. That means we're above the law. Them gorilla niggas don't know nothing about finessing the game. With the aroma of sliced Georgia peaches acting up in his nostrils, making promises to his lubricated tongue, Nick bit into the homegrown produce. Enjoying the period, he let Paul's last statement die, come back to life, then die again. We above the law. The effectiveness of the very language that he was blindly giving false life to disturbed Nick. We above the law, he said it to himself again. Nick tried for the last time to think of something that would weaken Paul's strong determination. Paul, you know how you told me that pimping was not in me. He recalled and nodded. You said a real pimp was like an African warrior belonging to his own one-man tribe. And from time to time, he would dine with others. If it was necessary, he would eat them. Paul smiled. You took 2 of the girls I had and you turned them into true breadwinners. And Pippin, I got to admit that the way you stick your neck out there when it's crunch time has gotten us out of some tight jams. Nothing was funny, but they both laughed, and one of them thought that he knew what the other one was going to say. He continued, you were right. I ain't no pimp, but I am a warrior, a great one at that. As we As he was speaking, a young boy who had enough of playing in the swimming pool emerged, and the two of them could not even relate to his innocence. Thinking that his point was proven, he closed his argument. But I'm a warrior with a growing tribe of my own, and if I don't play it safe, I won't be able to protect them. Demetrius, you and little Joe get ready to go inside. It's almost time for dinner. The young boy looked up at Nick with Nick's eyes. We're not done swimming, Daddy. He stuck his hand into the bowl of peaches, and at his movement, Peaches and his movements and gestures were those of a child who knew he was granted special privileges. Paul looked at Nick and saw a man who enjoyed the presence of his only seed so much that he was going to change the way he made his money. He was going to give up life for a kid. It's deep, Paul admitted, but I'm not that mature yet, blood. In fact, I don't know if I ever want to be that mature. Bam. That was chapter 17. So, as you see, I go into a bit of Atlanta history because there was a time, them Florida dudes was up here and it was causing havoc. Now, I was not a player. I was a little boy. I was not active. I don't know no real facts, but I've heard the stories. And so what I just tried to do, kind of like the Bible, I heard about the Bible, heard about stuff that was in the Bible. I took what was in my mind and my understanding and presented something. So what we have is that those elements in the street game actually playing out, and they get deeper because we're going to get off into some real Atlanta stuff. I'm talking about Willie B t-shirts and the Olympic, all that, all Atlanta stuff is coming out within this, man. So I wrote about Love Vietnam because that's what I'm familiar with. We'll touch on some of the other hoods like Joyland, but it's gonna all come together, man. We are moving through this book. That was chapter 17. Y'all stay tuned. Y'all like, y'all share, y'all subscribe, y'all hit the notification button, man. Let's get it. It's the best day of my life because tomorrow's not promised. And I woke up this morning. Go ahead and do your little dance while they still playing your song.